The New York Giants will be looking to cool down a red-hot Los Angeles Rams team on Sunday that's trying to clinch a playoff berth. Can New York, who has really nothing to play for the rest of the year, play the role of spoilers? We discuss that and much more on today's crossover edition of Locked On Giants, Locked On Rams, coming your way next.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode of Crossover Thursday is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the promo code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special crossover edition Locked On Giants, Locked On Rams. My name's Patricia Train. I am the host of Locked On Giants, and I am joined by Doug McCain. He is one of the co-hosts of Locked On Rams, and we're going to get you everything you need to know about this weekend's New York Giants, Los Angeles Rams game to be played 1 o'clock Sunday at MetLife Stadium. And Doug, welcome in. And first off on the program, always good to see you, my friend.
Patricia, thank you so much for having me on. We had the crossover show in the summertime, and it was a very different feeling towards that Rams team then. We were hoping maybe we win 5 games, maybe 6 games. A lot of experts have them at. Now you're seeing at 8 and 7. You control your own destiny to make the playoffs. An exciting game for the Rams coming up in New York. Of course, the Giants trying to play spoiled, but yeah, so excited to be here and talk some football.
Boy, how the tables have turned. I know back when we spoke, a lot of optimism for the New York Giants, but as you mentioned, the Giants, they're out of the playoffs. I mean, the Eagles did them in. Not that they really had much of a chance for that game. The real killer was a couple weeks ago against the Saints, but they still, they feel they have stuff to play for. And as we get into the key storylines of this weekend's game, perhaps the biggest one for the New York Giants is the change at quarterback. The Giants deciding to go with Tyrod Taylor over Tommy DeVito, Tommy Cutlets, who had captured the hearts and imaginations of not just the New York metro area, but nationwide with his, Italian heritage, his pitch sign, his touchdown sign that went viral, the shots of his family with his agents. Yep, exactly. But Tommy DeVito, unfortunately, the last 2 games, he basically was exposed for what he is, which is a developing young quarterback who, may do good with what he had, but really, in retrospect, not ready. So Brian Daboll, the Giants head coach, going with veteran Tyrod Taylor. And, I've been talking about this on my show and I've written about it, with the Giants really having nothing to play for other than the proverbial pride, which, we always hear for teams that are out of the playoffs. By putting Tyrod Taylor in there, I believe that Daboll is dangling a carrot in front of the rest of the team. And by that, I mean, Taylor, when he played the second half against the Eagles, he provided a tiny bit of a spark, not setting the game on fire. His stats really weren't that much better than DeVito's, but he was able to move the offense a little bit better. He had the highest average depth of target of all quarterbacks. DeVito had the lowest average depth of targets, of all quarterbacks last week. So the Giants opting to go with Tyrod Taylor, who does throw a nice ball, who does put it on the money, and they're hoping to, play spoilers to a red-hot Los Angeles Rams team that has won 5 of its last 6 games.
They're coming into this game hot, but I have to say, we are so disappointed in Locked On Rams land that we do not get to see Tommy Cutlets. We do not get to see Tommy DeVito. I don't know if I could call Brian Daboll and convince him. Maybe I'll make him an offer he can't refuse or something like that, right? Maybe his agent or his consigliere can, I don't know, send him some fish or something like that to try to get him to persuade him to play him. But yeah, like you mentioned, Tyrod Taylor definitely provided a spark, right? I mean, if you look at his numbers, he did throw that interception in the end, but he definitely gave them a little bit of life there. He ended up going for 133 yards, had a touchdown, did have that interception. But look, at the end of the day, Tommy DeVito, he was struggling. I mean, He was 9 for 16, 55 yards. The Giants were down 20-3 at one point. They had just 101 yards of total offense. And yeah, I like that you mentioned that you had the parents, then every time they would cut away, they would show them celebrating. And of course, he lives at his parents' house in New Jersey. It was a great storyline, but I think we're all reminded that this is the NFL. This is a business, and they're not just going for those feel-good stories. They're trying to win football games, and it's an example of that. And I think that we're hoping to see Tommy DeVito because I think that Tyrod Taylor, he gives them the best chance to win. And if you're the Rams, like you mentioned, winning 5 of your last 6 games, the way this offense has performed of late, 28-plus points in their last 5 games. I mean, you're talking about a team that continues to generate offense, and a lot of it has to do with Matthew Stafford. He's been outstanding of late, really playing as well as any quarterback in the NFL at the moment. I think he's reminding people out there that he's still one of the elite arms. He's still one of the best signal callers in the game. And last week, 328 yards, 2 touchdowns, a 120 rating. Since week 11, Patricia, last 6 games, 15 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, over 1,500 yards. So if you look at that, secondary for the Giants, yes, they can generate some turnovers, get some interceptions. We saw Adoree Jackson get a nice pick 6 for them. That's the big question. Can you avoid turnovers and just continue to stay hot in this game, which is absolutely a trap game for the Rams with the San Francisco 49ers looming with their potential playoff hopes on the line. So you got to get it done in New York.
Yeah, and Doug, let me ask you something because I'm kind of curious. I mean, the Rams have been on a tear since coming off of their Week 10 bye. You mentioned Matthew Stafford as being one of the reasons why, but what else have you seen, behind this Rams resurgence?
So 100% it's Kyren Williams. It's Kyren Williams in that downhill running attack. You're talking about a Matthew Stafford, Patricia, where for his entire career in the seasons, he's had 3 100-yard games. Kyren Williams has 3 straight 100-yard games. He has not had this level of consistency on the ground. You're seeing a dynamic offense, setting up the passing game, setting up the play-action pass. Also, as far as Matthew Stafford in particular, you're seeing more intermediate throws. You're seeing more short digs and things like that to Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. And also, you've discovered a receiver in DeMarcus Robinson who, at the beginning of the year, he was not playing. It was Tutu Atwell, but since then, he's overtaken him on the depth chart, and he has a touchdown his last 4 games. So not only is he playing great and avoiding turnovers, he's making throws that only a handful of guys in this league can make, but also it's the run game. And it all starts with Kyren Williams, averages 5.1 yards per carry, 96.1 yards per game. That's the most in the NFL. And we're sitting here in Ramsland kind of wondering what this season would look like if he didn't have a stint on the IR. That's how good he's been. So really, it's been a balanced attack, and this defense they've done just enough to really keep them in games. As far as last week on Thursday Night Football, the Saints mounted a late comeback, but for the most part, they've done just enough to allow this offense to light up scoreboards and really explode and put lots of points on the board. And that really has been the difference. It's just a balanced attack from this Rams offense. The offensive line, they've been really middle of the pack, but last week, Stafford gets sacked just 1 time. So if you keep him vertical, if you keep that jersey clean, he is going to cook. He's going to produce, and we've seen that over this stretch.
Indeed. And now coming up in the next segment, we're going to talk about some of the matchups. I know I have one that's really got me concerned about this game. I'm sure you've got a couple that you want to talk about. So we'll get to those right after this quick break. All right, everybody. This show is brought to you in part by Prize Picks. Just because the NFL season is coming to an end, at least for the New York Giants, who had this week and, of course, next week, it doesn't mean that the fun of playing daily fantasy sports with Prize Picks has to stop. Because right now, with basketball season underway, Prize Picks gives you the chance to pick combo projections across football and basketball from their Specials League that was created specifically for combo projections featuring 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. And did you also know that you could play along with family and friends by checking out the community tab? Prize Picks is so easy to play. All you have to do is pick 2 or more players, predict their stats, and sit back and see how they perform. It takes less than 60 seconds to make an entry, and when you play with Prize Picks, you enjoy quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and a wide selection of players and stat types. So what are you waiting for? Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the promo code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL, and that promo code is LockedOnNFL for your first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. All right, everybody, welcome back to the crossover edition of Locked On Giants, Locked On Rams. You got me, Patricia Trainer, host of Locked On Giants, and Doug McCain, who is co-host of Locked On Rams. And speaking of Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you all day, every day, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every single league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. And Doug, there's a lot of interesting matchups in this weekend's game between the Giants and the Rams. You know, people will say, oh, Aaron Donald immediately comes to mind. But, you know, from a Giants perspective, there is one matchup that really, really concerns me. You alluded to it a little bit in the previous segment, and that is that Rams running game against the Giants run defense. Now, the Giants run defense, for what it's worth, banged up front. Dexter Lawrence is dealing with a hamstring injury that has left him on a pitch count the last couple games. He did not practice, actually, the Giants didn't practice on Wednesday. They had a walkthrough, but Lawrence was projected not to practice. Ashawn Robinson, who lines up alongside of Dexter Lawrence, he's been dealing with an injury. Rakeem Nunez-Roches, who is part of that rotation, dealing with an injury. So that has left the Giants with having to rely on youth, DJ Davidson and Jordan Riley. Now, while those two haven't been bad, they're, you know, you'd rather have Dexter Lawrence in there, obviously, who's one of the best run stuffers in the game. And that matchup, you know, the Giants, you know, if they're not getting the push, if they're not filling the gaps and making their run fits, I'm concerned about that matchup.
Yeah, that's definitely the biggest key, really, for the Rams to have a balanced attack is what do you get from Kyren Williams? Does he continue to produce? And he's at this point proven that he's not a fluke, right? He definitely has established himself as one of the better running backs in the NFL. And I think what Kyren Williams does for this Rams offense is when he's having success early on, it really keeps Sean McVay from going to the pass a little too much, and especially on the road, where if you get down early, there's always that temptation with the talent they have with Stafford and Kupp and Puka Nacua to say, no, we're getting it done on the ground. And you mentioned the Giants' defensive line, one of the worst in the league as far as QB hits and getting pressure and getting to the quarterback. Really, we've seen this season change with the Rams running game and that gap scheme, downhill running game that's really helped neutralize some of the better pass rushes. So when they're getting consistent yards on the ground, it usually translates to Matthew Stafford not getting hit and staying vertical, and that's really the biggest key. Now, for me, matchup I'm looking at as far as one, of course, we talked about Tyrod Taylor. I think he's going to be an upgrade to Tommy DeVito. I think he's a veteran. He's 500 his career, 27-27-1 as a starting quarterback. I think that you saw some glimpses last week of what he can provide. But really, the question is, can you stop Saquon Barkley? And Saquon Barkley is still explosive. He's still one of the better backs in the league when it comes to a raw talent standpoint. And this Rams defense, they're really middle of the pack. We've seen certain games where they've gotten gashed on the ground. And Saquon Barkley last week, less than 4 yards per carry. But the Rams, they're coming off their best performance as far as stopping the ground game. Really, the number one key for the Rams in their number one approach on defense last week was trying to bottle up Alvin Kamara, and they absolutely did that. They held him to 19 yards on 9 carries at 2.1 average. He caught just 16 yards receiving on 5 catches. So if they can replicate the performance against the Giants and Saquon Barkley, I feel really good about this Rams' chances of winning.
All right, and I'm going to give you one more matchup because this one kind of just popped up this week when I saw the Giants injury report. Both starting cornerbacks, Adoree Jackson and Deonte Banks, who, by the way, has played really, really well for a rookie, on the injury report. Banks did not practice. He has a shoulder ailment that he suffered in Monday's game against the Eagles. Jackson, I believe, is dealing with an ankle injury. Behind them, they have some youth, but there is a drop-off. And against, those Rams receivers, that Rams passing game, I would be concerned if one or both of those guys are limited or can't go in any way.
Absolutely. My eyes just absolutely went wide when I saw that report, because if you look at that Giants secondary, it's definitely one of the areas where you feel good about. If you look at turnovers, they're 11th in the NFL. Dory Jackson, we know him very well out here at USC Trojan. We know the big play capability that he has. We saw it last week with that pick six, and they held Hurts to an 85 rating. So they performed very well. And look, the reality is sometimes on the road, if you're this Rams team, you just have to get it done through the air. Puka Nacua, he's been really the breakout rookie of the year, the diamond in the rough that they found in the 5th round of last year's NFL draft. And he's proven to be not just a great rookie, but a great overall receiver. And he could make a little history. He had 11 catches for 164 yards and a TD against the Saints, but 147 yards away from passing Bill Groman for the most receiving yards ever for a rookie. So it's definitely going to be a big factor in him going against some of the reserve cornerbacks for the Giants. Now, another thing I want to point out, too, was this Rams team, if you look at the bye week situation that they've had this season, they've gone 1-3 against teams coming off byes, 4 bye week situations. The Rams now, for the first time in a while, they had that advantage. You got the mini bye playing the Saints on Thursday Night Football. The Giants, they played, of course, on Christmas Day. I think the Rams are going to be fresh and ready, but I totally agree with you that that's going to be a big factor as it pertains to your point, because Puka Nacua, he had a great game, but his partner in crime, Cooper Kupp, he didn't have a great game. He had 12 targets, made 6 catches, 52 yards, one of his worst games of the season. I think that extra time is going to help that veteran go out there and produce against this Giants secondary.
Indeed. And then, one other factor, you mentioned that the Rams are well rested, having played the Saints and beaten the Saints on Thursday Night Football. But you know what? The Rams have to travel cross country for a 1:00 Eastern game, which I believe would be about 10 o'clock their time.
Yep.
And so let me see. So just in looking at the 1:00 games that they have played over the years, or over the year, I should say, they beat the Colts in week 4. They lost to Dallas at a 1:00 game. So it looks like a mixed bag for the Rams. Let me see what else they've done real quick on the 1:00 games. Lost to the Packers, and then they lost to the Ravens. So they have not done very well, it looks like, in games that have had a 1:00 kickoff.
Well, they've had some, like 9-3 with McVay last 7 years in that early window. I don't know if McVay goes to each hotel room, is knocking on the doors, making sure everyone is getting to bed. He's 3-0 against the Giants in his career. The points are really usually at a premium in those games. Well, he scored at least 30 points in 9 of those 12 early windows games. So, yeah, there has been some bumps in the road, and I think it's always a factor. Even if you look at the success you have had in the past, it's still an early window game, and I think the biggest factor is just it's a trap game. It is an absolute trap game, because you know that the Giants, like you said, nothing to play for as far as the postseason is considered, but they want to play spoiler. And this Rams team knows that if they lose this game to fall to 8-8, then they don't control their own destiny. And you have to go to San Francisco, a team that's dominated you in the regular season, just to try to make it back in the postseason. So there's that. And I will also point to the game they had against the Ravens a few weeks ago. It was in Baltimore, early window game. It was pouring down rain, and the Rams, they took that one to overtime. So they're focused. They executed well on that one. So I definitely think with all the veterans on this team, they can keep this team focused, but there is a lot of rookies. Byron Young, Kobe Turner, Steve Avila, Puka Nacua, lots of inexperience, and this really is one of the bigger games of their NFL career, and it is an early window game in New York. So definitely going to be a big factor. Can they handle that pressure?
Well, we're going to certainly find out if they can. But first, you and I are going to talk about some predictions or expectations, and we're going to get to that coming up right after this. All right, folks, this episode of Crossover Thursday featuring Locked On Giants and Locked On Rams is brought to you in part by LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. And when you want the best candidates available at your fingertips, you have to go to LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. I myself have used LinkedIn Jobs to find aspiring writers for the Giants Country site that I run over on SI's Fan Nation. And the process is not only super easy, but a big time saver. All you do is you add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Then sit back and watch the applications come in, as simple tools like screening questions help make it easier to determine who you want to interview and hire. So don't spend time sorting through endless resumes and dead-end leads. Put LinkedIn Jobs to work to you today for free by visiting linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Terms and conditions apply. All right, everybody, welcome back to this crossover edition, Locked On Giants, Locked On Rams. I'm Patricia Train, a credentialed member of the New York Giants media. He is Doug McCain. He is credentialed member of the Los Angeles Rams media. And we, of course, host Locked On Giants. I do at any rate. And he co-hosts Locked On Rams. And in this segment, we're going to talk about predictions and expectations. Now, Doug, according to our friends over at FanDuel, the Giants are a 5.5-point underdog. No surprise there. Well, actually, the only surprise is I thought it would be a little bit more, all things considered. But how are you feeling? You've mentioned obviously that you think this is a trap game, but how are you feeling? How are you really feeling about this game and the Rams' chance?
I mean, I'm feeling confident that they're going to go in there and face this Giants team that, like you mentioned, the secondary definitely being hit by injuries a little bit. I think that's going to be a big factor. Really, the one concern I had is, look, does Matthew Stafford throw an interception or two, considering how hot he's been of late? Do you see a tiny little bit of regression to the mean? Maybe those earlier interception, maybe key interception in the second half. But now, considering that they're not going to be at full strength at the very least, I think that I have even more confidence the Rams go in there and find a way to get this dub. I think they are going to cover. I think you looked at the offense of late. They're going against a Giants team that, look, they've given them a ton of points, a ton of yards this season. They haven't been great at getting pressure on the quarterback. And most importantly, the thing that would scare me if I was a Rams fan would be, okay, can the Giants offense get explosive, put up a ton of points on this Rams defense that they haven't been great, that they've been good enough to do what they've done this season and be just one game over 500. And look, the reality is the Giants, they have the fewest passing yards in the NFL, 2,296, fewest first downs in the NFL, 228. You got Tyrod Taylor. Yes, I think he's an upgrade to Tommy DeVito, like I said earlier in the show, but there's no reason why if the Rams played the same complimentary football that we've seen the last couple of games, the special teams unit, they definitely have been doing their job on the group project, right? They've been taking advantage of the offense, mainly in the defense, making timely turnovers and just getting key stops. But really, it's about going in there, getting the job done, doing what you've done since the bye week, and putting yourself in a great position to make the playoffs and being really the surprise team of the NFL.
And oh, by the way, did I mention that the Giants punting unit, their punter, Jamie Gillen, is also hurt? Two
Really?
injuries. Jamie, of course, the left-legged kicker. He has a groin injury that he suffered against the Saints when he had a place kick, and he banged his knee last week against the Eagles. So the Giants just banged up beyond belief. I mean, Giant fans are used to this. I mean, although you can never really get used to it, but
that was us last year here in Ramsland.
It's wild. It's like this every year for the New York Giants. It just seems like that injury bug comes in and just wipes out guys for all or chunks of the season, and there just seems to be no answer. So who knows? Anybody who can come up with an answer can probably make a nice little pocket full of money from the Giants who are looking for an answer. But back to the point about predictions and stuff like that. Tyrod Taylor, I do believe, gives the Giants a better chance to win. As I mentioned at the top of the program, better ball placement, gets the ball out quickly. He's seen all kinds of things. I think he can adjust protection a little bit better than DeVito, who I think, last week had some trouble with that. My concern obviously lies with the offensive line, which can be, a problem. I don't think the Giants offensive line has picked up a stunt yet all year, which is not something new. And I think the Rams like to do some stunting. Aaron Donald is still very good. He might not have the double-digit sacks that he's had in recent years, but he is still very, very good and, very difficult to, get past. So that would be a concern, especially for a banged-up interior. We talk about injuries. John Michael Schmitz, the center, banged up. Ben Bredesen and Justin Pugh, the guards, they're banged up. They were listed as limited on the injury report. So really, I think injuries are kind of an underlying theme for the Giants this week. Now, I expect some of these guys to be in there, but when you're not full strength and you got to go against Aaron Donald and company, oh boy, fasten your seatbelts.
Yeah, absolutely. And you always have to bring that up. Aaron Donald, of course, I call him Bruce Banner in football cleats. He can absolutely wreck a game, destroy a game. And yeah, if you look at the sack totals, they're not going to blow you away. But if you look at the PFF grades, if you look at some of the deeper stuff, he still is one of the very best at his position. And really, the thing that he does best is draw double teams, draw triple teams. And guys like Kobe Turner can take advantage of that. He's a rookie interior lineman out of Wake Forest. He's really turned the corner around mid-season. He just continues to get better. If you see him doing this during a game, you know he has sacked Tyrod Taylor because we call him the conductor here in Los Angeles. And look, that's what you have to do. When you play alongside Aaron Donald, you have to take advantage of all the attention that he receives. And look, this isn't a Rams team that gets a ton of sacks and a ton of pressure. That's just not what they do. It really is a bend but don't break style of defense. But I will say the thing that really keeps me up when I wake up at 3:30 in the morning in a cold sweat, Patricia, my biggest fear is this Rams secondary giving up big plays. That is a theme we've seen in this secondary. It's continued to burn them. We're talking about big plays and untimely moments. The Saints, they were able to rally a little bit and mount a little bit of a comeback and make that game interesting because you saw some of these big plays, and we saw it against the Ravens with Likely. We've seen it really all year during certain spots. So that definitely is the concern, is can Tyrod Taylor find a way to take the top off the defense and get a big play here and there and really try to put some points up, put some pressure on this Rams defense early on?
He has a couple guys who can certainly do that. And Wandale, well, Wandale can do it too, but more so in Jalen Hyatt, who really hasn't, been a big part of the offense for the last few weeks. And of course, Darius Slayton, who had a big, deep reception last, matter of fact, I think it was a touchdown reception against the Eagles. So they do have the capability. But Doug, before we wrap it up, I know you like to give a score. So if you're willing to give a score, I'll give a score prediction.
I'm ready for it, Patricia. I thought you never asked. I'm going 31-17 Rams.
Ooh.
They get the win on the road. I like it. I think they cover. It's going to be tough. I mean, for me, it's just you got to win this game because, look, if you don't, then you're counting on the Seahawks and the Packers losing games. You do not want to do that. You want to control your own destiny, take care of business, and put yourself in a great position to make the playoffs. And you definitely take another big step in the right direction if you do that. The Rams continue to light up the scoreboard. They get 30-plus points again. Give me Rams 31 to, I think what I say is 10? No, 17. 31-17. Give me the Rams.
You know what? Great minds think alike, because I was going to say Rams 30-17.
There we go. There we go. Hopefully for Giants fans, though, that you're wrong, but Rams fans love that pick. I guarantee that. 31-17.
I've come close with my predictions. Maybe I've been off a little bit, but come close. And I'm sorry, Giant fans. I can't pick the team to win any more games this year. I think, stick a fork in them. They're done. You just hope that they're going to be competitive. And, you hope that the game's not going to be a disgusting blowout. Think, 40-0 like it was in week 1, which kind of set the tone for what has been a disappointing 2023 season for the New York Giants. But anyway, Doug, that's why you line up and you play the game, because you never know any given Sunday and all that stuff. So I don't know about you, but I'm looking forward to it. There's only a couple games left for the Giants, and then we've got the long off season here on the Locked On Giants podcast. But we'll be here to keep you company. And speaking of which, we will have a live stream for you on Friday night. That's right. In over a month, first one in over a month. Traina, Tana, and Dog, we are back with a live stream. And of course, Locked On Rams fans, make sure you check out Doug. He and his co-host will have plenty of content for you. I'm sure they'll break down the game in more detail, both before and after. So that's going to do it for us here on this crossover edition of Locked On Giants, Locked On Rams. We thank you for tuning in, making us your first listen of the day, or if you watch on YouTube, your first watch of the day. And we salute all our everydayers. And I know our newcomers and everybody in between. We appreciate you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that little bell. It helps us with the algorithm. So on behalf of Doug McCain, I'm Patricia Traina. We will see you on our respective shows tomorrow. Everybody have a great, great day.